Recording is on.
All right, welcome everyone to Bitcoin Design Community Call number 54. We haven't had the last one we had was around summer. We took a break for a little bit, but now there's kind of an important topic that Daniel, Mo, and I would like to talk about, which is the Bitcoin Design Foundation, and that's why we invited all of you to come here. So thank you so much for showing up. For a little bit, actually, let's do one thing first. I shared a Google Doc in the chat. It's at the very top. Hope you can see it. Let me know if you can. You have edit rights. Feel free to track any questions and any notes in there, because I'm pretty sure a lot of questions will come up along the way, and I do hope we can track and cover them all. So I'll hand it over to Daniel in a second, but we're not here to do a big presentation saying, here's the Bitcoin Design Foundation. We've done a bunch of work. It's quite a bit of work in the background here. We've gotten things kind of loosely together, and now we want to share where we're at and get some feedback and have some more public discussions, and then move forward accordingly. So we prepared a few talking points that we would like to go over and then move into open conversation. How does that sound? And is that okay with everyone? Okay, great. And then I will hand over to Daniel, who will kick us off.
Thank you, Christoph. Yeah, I just wanted to say a few bits about where we sort of came from, where we started as a community, because, you know, although we want to talk about the Bitcoin Design Foundation today, that foundation is literally just there to support the community. And it was about sort of first half of 2020 that this thing sort of started to take shape, at least. I mean, thanks a lot to Steve here and Spiral and Square Crypto that had, you know, always thought that the user experience was just as important as the kind of code and technological advancements we've made with Bitcoin. But what good is that if nobody knows how to use it, or if it doesn't get easier to use? So with that sort of kernel, yeah, Steve started to kind of pull people together, because there were a lot of people working on this just in much isolation. And sort of the first port of call was to try and find a space where conversations could be had. So there was a Slack started in mid 2020, which is now morphed into our Discord. But yeah, I think even the starting point was sort of Spiral looking for one person. They didn't get that. They got a whole community instead. And I think we're all happy that it turned out that way. It's a lot for one person to do. And a lot of things that kind of make more sense in the open anyway. You know, we wanted to create shared resources that we could all use and contribute to. And that's kind of what we have today, right? About 3 years later, we have our open space for designers and builders and anyone interested to come and talk, ask questions, learn, help teach each other. We actually tried to tot up before this call how many calls we've had as a community. We couldn't quite believe it when it was definitely more than 400 in that time. So that's another, apart from the Discord space, these calls are a core pillar of what we do, and they come in all shapes or forms. You know, this is the kind of main community call, but there are more work-focused calls as well. And then the resources that we've created so far, you know, it's obviously the Bitcoin Design Guide, which is an ongoing project, very valuable. We know people use it. We don't know as much as we would like about who uses it and what they use it for. So if you do, you know, please come forward. But that has definitely taken off. We've got the Bitcoin UI kit. There's Bitcoin icon set. There's a UX research kit. It's a lot of things we've done and created together. And apart from those resources, there's also been a ton of collaborations with real projects. Too many to mention, but one that's topical at the moment is the Bitcoin Core app, which is coming along nicely with Christoph in the mix. and Mo on design, on research, and many others. And but it all comes back to Spiral. So we have to thank you for kind of the kernel, and part of why we're here today to talk about the foundation as well. That I think in the sort of framework that Spiral shared a blog post about when it comes to kind of sustainable communities, they form around an idea and sort of identifying a common project. And then a community builds around that. And then the kind of third phase is trying to broaden funding, right? And that's sort of where the step we're at today. We want to thank Spiral a lot for supporting the communities so far and want to keep leaning on you guys, but we want to broaden that. We want to make sure we have a more sustainable future to eventually hopefully get to the kind of the fourth phase that plan outlines, which is when it's independent of any one contributor. So that's sort of a bit of where we've come from, and we're very excited to kind of take it to this next step where we're broadening our sponsors. So I'll hand it back to you, Christoph, for sharing what we've got.
All right, thanks for that. I have a lot of very, very boring talking points to just kind of throw out into the mix. So I'll just talk about how we got here to this foundation. So the discussions, they started about as early as 2 years ago. We had a bit of a false start. And then a year ago, the three of us, Mo, Daniel, and I, we started to take this a lot more serious and start doing serious research. And I want to mention, I don't know how many of you are familiar with, nonprofit organizations and how all of this stuff works. So I'll just throw out a whole bunch of different things that we kind of looked at, and I'll break it down into, and those might be a basis for conversation later. And I'll break it into 4 different topics. One is the legal basis. It's like, what country do you set this up in? What type of legal entity is it? How does it affect taxation, and what paperwork do you need? If we set it up in Europe versus the US, like what are the effects of that? So my idea was always initially like, we'll try to make this super unique custom thing perfectly tailored for this community. But then, after talking to lawyers and doing tons of research, turns out that there was just a lot of dead ends, and looking back, learned a lot about like German tax law and whatnot. But in the end, it was just kind of a lot of wasted time as well. So we changed our strategy a little bit, and we've ended up finding a platform and a company called Open Collective. I think Mo will talk about that a little bit more. And they basically abstract this kind of a legal and tax and accounting setup for us, so that we can actually just focus on running the foundation and don't have to worry about, every year filing our tax reports and talking to an accountant and speaking with lawyers and all of this stuff. So that is a really great foundation for us now. And we're pretty much have the paperwork and everything around that set up, so we can accept donations and pay out grants. Like, big milestone there. And I'm sure there are lots of questions around that stuff that we can get to later. The second part was the organizational structure, which is, what are the goals this organization needs to address? Like, what's the relationship between us admins and the organization and the community? Like, what do we do versus what's outside of our mission? How does it compare to Spiral, Brink, OpenSats? How does it fit in the Bitcoin ecosystem? How do we personally manage our roles as foundation admins versus our roles contributing to individual projects, right? How do we stay neutral and balance all this stuff well? Do we need an advisory board? How do we communicate everything this organization does? All kinds of good long discussions we've had. The third part was giving money, which is, the three of us don't want to be the people who decide like what's good, what's bad, what deserves money, what doesn't. Someone has to, right? But the foundation has to have some type of opinion on it. But how do we shape that so it's really based on what the Bitcoin ecosystem needs, what designers need, what people want, where there are big gaps that are otherwise not filled, and how do we balance that, but also really responsive to what's going out there. So all kinds of stuff there that, I think we're doing our best at the beginning, and then we'll get better over time. And I think that part specifically requires a lot of interaction between the foundation and the community. All right, then practical stuff. What are grant sizes? How long should grants be? Do we do bounties? Do we want to, fund stuff like a conference booth or prizes for another design-a-thon? All kinds of options there. And then a really big thing is the user experience for applying for a grant, because this is something that's, I think, for me initially, this was like, I had no idea how this stuff worked coming around to my first grant, and what to expect, like, totally foreign, even though I've worked as a freelancer and for different companies before. And then the fourth part is, fundraising. What budget should we strive for? How do we do our financial planning? Who is even willing to give money to this in this ecosystem, right? We're just designers. We're not those special developers. And should we do crowdfunding, look for smaller donations, or look for big donors? And if we do that, how do we get around to that? How do we contact them? What about funding beyond the Just a Bitcoin ecosystem, like public funding by the European Commission? Something also researched, there might actually be something there. All kinds of threads to follow up with. And, in the end, that kind of turns the three of us into fundraisers as well. So we have to think about, like, are we going to, do talks at conferences about fundraising? And how do we lure people into these awesome Bitcoin design careers in open source? All kinds of stuff. So as I said, we had tons of conversations around this. I think we kind of have a good grip on a lot of these types of things. It's way too much to talk about in a 1-hour call with so many people. There's a whole bunch of this stuff that we try to capture on the Open Collective page, in the About page. There are some links there to different subpages. But it's also great if you can just track your questions, discussion points in the Google Doc that I shared, and maybe then we can go over some of those. And like I said, a lot of stuff, we will learn and tweak and adjust and get better over time. And I'm not sure if that was helpful, all this information, but I'll wrap things up and I'll hand it over to Mo to talk about what we actually have now.
Thank you for passing the baton, Christoph. Yeah, so as Christoph mentioned, it's been a pretty long road for all of us working together so closely. It's a pleasure to work with Christoph and with Daniel. And I'll move more into the sort of operational side of things. And, when I say operational side of things, we are learning in full transparency. We are learning as we're going along. And we're very open to this operational setup, which we've set up now. It's very open to the community's feedback and to, how these processes can be improved. So Open Collective is the platform that we've decided to use. I will quickly share the link to the platform. It's basically it acts as a legal setup for the foundation. It allows the foundation to receive funds and distribute funds in a nutshell. So that is the platform. We leaned into it because everything is very open and transparent, and the foundation has a setup on that platform. So that platform will allow the foundation to be able to pay grants to grantees, as well as accept one-time or monthly donations. So we have a setup at the moment. I will share the page, which we've been working on amongst. Yeah, thank you so much, Christoph. So that's our live page on the Open Collective platform. We've tried to make things feel very human and very approachable. And, there's options there for posting updates. There's options there for, a little bit about reading about the foundation as well. And there are the three of us there at the bottom. So this is basically, and today we published our first live update. I will share that as well. Lots of reading, but you can, catch up on that later. So we published our first official, how could you call that, newsletter, if you'd like to call that. So yeah, as Christoph said, thinking about the user experience for grantees as well as sponsors is definitely something that we think very seriously about, Internally, we have our own documents around the whole process that a grantee will go through from the moment of awareness about the foundation right through to actually getting a grant from the foundation. So we've really tried to think about keeping the communication as open and as clear, and setting the expectations for grantees as well once they come into initial contact with the foundation. We're learning from Spiral. We're leaning into other foundations that are doing the same thing, and yes, we're learning as we're going along. We also have set up, which is set up by Christoph this morning, the Discord channel. So we have a live Discord channel now. I will also share the link. Here is the live Discord channel. Yeah, lots of links here. So we have the live Discord channel, which we invite all of you to jump into and join. And that Discord channel is within the Bitcoin Design Community channel. So we invite you to jump into that channel, get updates about the foundation, what's going on, ask questions, that kind of thing. So anything else to touch on? Grantees, yes. Yeah, we'd love to, after I finished, this is definitely for the grantees, which are obviously a center focus for us as well, is making sure that you're able to communicate with us as clearly as possible and as easily as possible. For now, if there's anyone on the call who is interested in the foundation or interested in areas that the foundation is looking to support, we have set up a live grantee page as well. Yeah, we're coming across as very organized, and I'm dropping loads of links. So we actually have a live grantee page, which I'm going to drop in here. It's a Notion page. The purpose of that page is to provide you as grantees with as much information as possible. We try to answer as many FAQs as possible, and we will keep on building on that as well. And last but not least, sponsors. Yeah, we would love the sustainability of the community, of the foundation, to be a community effort. And, there's a whole bunch of you here on the call, and, you can all be our first flag bearers. So if any of you know of anyone who would like to donate to the foundation, or any companies or anyone who we should reach out to, please feel free to send us a message, and we'd love to, start up a conversation with them. And with that, we also have a sponsor page, and I will drop the link for that one as well. So yeah, we're coming across as being very organized, but yeah, there's been so much of operational stuff going on in the background. It's insane. So yeah, that's it from me, and I'll pass it over to you, Christoph. I guess we're going to move into a bit of an open discussion now, because that's the purpose of this call.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mo. And all these sub pages, they're linked to from the Open Collective page. You should be able to all find them there. We try to make sure that things are properly cross-linked. So yeah, we have all this set up. We've set up this call today. We'd like to answer questions, have an open discussion now. We would also like to then for the moving forward also potentially set up future calls. Like for example, Btrust, they just set up. They just had a session, I think this week or next week, about career tracks for open source Bitcoin developers. Maybe we can have a similar chat about what a career in open source Bitcoin design could look like or so. So there are all kinds of follow-ups now, but we've talked for like 20 minutes, the three of us. Maybe we should just open it up to the floor and see what happens.
Okay. Hi. I'd like to say a few words. Just thank you so much to Christoph, Daniel, and Mo for going through all this work to get this set up. Spiral, myself and Spiral are really, really excited for this big moment. And just to let everyone know, I can't think of three better leaders to be part of this foundation. It's really important that this community, it is decentralized and remains decentralized, but you still need people to step up. And Mo and Daniel and Christoph are just perfect for that. They're great leaders, but they're very inclusive for everyone involved, and are listening to everyone and really doing what's right for Bitcoin design and the contributors to this community. So, and actually, I think their collective experience on this is nearly a decade, because I first met Christoph and Daniel 4 years ago, and Mo a couple of years ago. So not quite 10 years, but they bring a lot of experience as well to this. Just super confident in them and then leading this. And the community I'm just proud of too, in terms of how it's evolved. Like Spiral hasn't had to be really involved at all. I mean, I helped at the beginning, but very quickly after that was able to completely step back, and it just had that good leadership and made a lot of progress. It's also been a great way I've observed for people to grow their careers. I mean, I think that the three people that we were just talking about have grown tremendously within Bitcoin. I met Connor through Bitcoin design community, and then we hired him full-time on Spiral. And then people like Stephen Delorme came through the design community, and he got hired full-time at Voltage. And who did River hire? I'm forgetting the name now.
Bosch.
Sorry, he changed his name. His NIM. But so Bosch came through the design community. He got hired by River. So for those maybe a little bit newer to the design community, it's just a great way to not only contribute to Bitcoin design, but also if you're newish in the Bitcoin space, to grow your career. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, no, it's really important to thank all the other people that have been part of the community as well. Some of you are on the call. Everybody that has contributed should be thanked. Especially those of you who have dove into GitHub and made PRs. And for a designer, it's not the first port of call, but like as an open community, we run on those open tools. So I can see many faces here who have contributed in that depth. But yeah, finding new people to give grants to and support is a good stepping stone into potential full-time jobs. Like you said, right? We're not sad to see people go on to other things in the ecosystem. That's that's a great thing. Because many of them are still involved, even though it's not full time or as much as before. But it's a great stepping stone, and we're spreading both the knowledge and then the tentacles of the community.
Yeah, speaking about people hopping on to do other things, the foundation stands for design, but it doesn't mean like all design things have to go through this foundation, right? If it could be, maybe it encourages other entities to also fund designers. So maybe someone applies, maybe we'll forward them or try to find the best match or so. I think our roles are just to support this whole thing as a whole, not necessarily try to funnel everything through the foundational community, but just to support everyone who's involved with these areas. There was a question in the doc. It had to come up. I knew it was come up. No donations in Bitcoin. Correct, unfortunately. That is because Open Collective, they're actually working on that. There is an open source collective that's kind of a different fiscal host. They actually support that. We're hoping to get that as quickly as possible. We're trying to work with them to make that happen. In the meantime, though, I think we should be able to accept donations in Bitcoin through the three of us, and then one of us would then convert it and feed it into the Open Collective bank accounts. But yeah, we do realize that, and we hope to get there very quickly. And they're also, the Open Collective team, super nice. We have a good relationship there, and we hope we can make that happen. There's a second part to that question that I will not entertain in the Google Doc. Testing the request grant flow. Mo just did that.
Yeah, I can touch on that. I tested the grant flow yesterday or the day before yesterday. I took some screenshots and I imagined myself going through the process. And it's pretty straightforward. So, the way we see it is kind of similar to the way that Spiral did it. We look to first building a relationship with a potential grantee before they actually click on the grant button on the platform. So it would be something like a conversation or a few back and forths, and then going through the platform. Actually, in very practical terms, a grantee would submit an invoice. And the invoice process, very practically speaking, you can submit a recurring invoice via the platform. So it's super easy to just submit your invoice, change your currency. You do have to provide an email address to submit an invoice, as well as proof that you have a registered company in your country of origin and that you are paying tax. And yeah, that's basically the process. You would submit a monthly invoice via the platform. Is there another question there about the platform? Pseudonyms. Do we know if pseudonyms are possible?
So we had a bunch of questions and conversations about privacy with them. So by default, everything is public. All incoming money, all expenses, all grants, it's all public. Anyone can go in and see the budget. Just like blockchain, you can see what's going on. But we also wanted to make sure that people can ask for privacy. And there is an option where publicly you can hide your name. So an amount is visible. There could be like a placeholder text or so. So it's still listed, but you can't tell any details. And then only internally for tax and KYC, AML, whatever purposes. Internally, the personal data there has to be something available. We talked recently to the HRF about their grant process and asked them if they actually found a solution to avoid that altogether, and they haven't found anything either. So there is a limit as to, absolute privacy and anonymity. That's just, part of being a government registered nonprofit that gets the tax benefits and all of these things. But yeah, I think this is also something that can be part of the initial conversations before a grant actually enters any forums on any websites. Okay, next question was, is there a foundation roadmap? We do not have a public roadmap. Currently, we have all kinds of stuff that we're doing in the background. We're applying. We have several grant applications that we're working on. We're talking with several potential donors. I don't know if we should mention them or not, but so we're trying to become familiar with these potential partners, try to understand what they're looking for, how they may want to engage with design or not, and what we can get there as our initial fundraising. At the same time, I think we have kind of an idea of initial things that we think deserve or should get funding. Right? When we when we want to fundraise, we actually have to tell, these are kind of the areas that we've identified. So we have to kind of put our foot forward there. And all of the things that we came up with, they should be pretty much based on what was going on in the community anyways, like things that we've observed that people want to make happen or that are happening in some way, but maybe could use more funding. So we are trying to go full ahead and try to get that number on the collective page, that budget number from 0 to non-zero, and fill that up. And then also we're in conversation with different people about potential grants. We're also trying to now be more public, invite more people to apply and have those conversations, and try to kick this whole cycle off. There's a financial plan budget plan that we tried to come up with for 2024, which was also something that we had to do. Think about, how this money could be used, what our budgets should be or not, whatnot. But I don't think that's going to be public. But I'd like to return that question, or I'd like to ask first Daniel and Mo, what did I miss? I'm just kind of rambling here. And I was also curious if there are any specific questions within that. Like, what specifically are you curious about in terms of activities?
I'd also love to hear from all of you guys, but just to step back a bit, I mean, the roadmap, very simply, is to make this community effort sustainable, right? That's step number one. We got to try and get a kind of fundraising situation going and a sponsorship, kind of sponsor relationships going to a point where we have ideally, 2 years sort of knowledge that's like, okay, we can sustain our efforts at the current level. That's sort of base level where we want to get to, right? Then, of course, step 2 after that is like, well, what we really don't want to do is grow, right? We want to have a bigger impact. So that's, basic level in terms of roadmap from the fundraising side. But then when it comes to spending the money, right? Again, we want to broaden the number of people that can spend their time on open source Bitcoin design. So, on that front, it's finding motivated individuals that really want to dig in and continue the efforts of the community, or broaden it or come up with new ideas. But that's the other side, right? So these two have to work together. And I think the roadmap will sort of, ideally, in terms of output, will come out of the community, right? The foundation is not the writer of the roadmap for the community. We will try to focus on raising as much money as we can and finding as many individuals as we can that want to work on community projects.
Yeah, and also touching on that, in terms of the vision as well, is the experience of the grantees as well. We hope that we create such an experience that grantees walk away after doing a grant, and they just rave about it, and then they send more grantees our way. That would be the best marketing ever, just word of mouth, that they feel taken care of, they feel that they've had a good experience, and they bring more people towards the foundation. So yeah, just really looking forward to, I think, just doing good work and allowing that to just travel via word of mouth as well.
Yeah.
Very organically.
And to add to Daniel's point about the foundation roadmap being very closely intertwined with the community roadmap. So what is a community roadmap? It's, kind of continuing, making sure that there is a community and it's organized and managed, and we continue to have these calls and all that projects like the guide continue to be maintained and grow and improve with content that, that is helpful to people out there, that maybe some designers get funding to work on projects that are deemed important for the ecosystem in one way or another. And I think that's a really great conversation that we should have in the community itself, where I think we did that for the guide last year. We kind of created a roadmap for the guide for 2024-3. And we should do the same with with the community itself and maybe those sub projects. And then the foundation can basically take that and look at that and then, use that as a basis and see how it can support those initiatives. Yeah, nothing that you want Mo and Daniel and I to just dictate. That's for sure. There was another question. If you donate using OpenSats, are you donating to the foundation as well? So speaking with OpenSats, they're updating how these pages work. So far, donation in OpenSats has not been a huge feature. I think last time I checked on the OpenSats project page, there was 5 donations worth, 160,000 sats or so, and that page was public for a couple of years. But I believe they're working on improving that process to making that a little bit more prominent. But I don't know exactly how that's going to pan out and if that will be. But yeah, I think the idea is that this would also be part of the foundation, because there's nowhere else it should go, right? At this point, the foundation was set up for this specific purpose.
Open mic, any questions, any thoughts on what you've heard so far?
No, I just wanted to say congratulations as well. Bitcoin design is definitely very close to my heart, being my first foray into open source Bitcoin, and working with you guys has been a pleasure. Can't wait to see, your flavor of kind of open source Bitcoin funding. Also, just another special mention to John's Bahari as well, who was pretty much with the community from the start as well. And he's not working necessarily at full-time at a Bitcoin company, but he has kind of crafted his own niche in the space, and he's doing a lot of great work with the hackathons and stuff. And some of the prominent products we now see in the Bitcoin space have emerged from some of those tournaments and hackathons. So it might not be that you go on to have a full-time career at a company, but you can definitely carve your niche in some way, having the experience of just working with all of these great people. So yeah, like Spiral is, excited to continue to support you guys as well, and hopefully we can bring on more donors on board as well, and this setup makes it a lot easier for them to do that as well, so yeah, good work.
Yeah, thank you. And to speak on that one, I talked to John quite a few times about overlap between Bolt Fun and maybe the design community and hackathons. And we did have a design-a-thon about a year ago. We didn't have one this year, but it would be amazing to have one next year. And last year we had some prizes, but we didn't have any treasuries. So we were going around and some people started chipping in. But for the next one, we can actually have we can have a foundation that can support this design-a-thon. We can have proper prizes where we don't need to go around begging or just kind of hope someone chips in something. So we can a little bit more properly kind of make these kind of initiatives happen. And John's has always been great to actually pull in and negotiate with his sponsors for the hackathons to include a design prize. So that's been something that's been established, but I feel like with the foundation too, we can beef that up a little bit more. So I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, John's has been heart and soul of the community also a very long time, and not forgetting another person that was part of it early on, but it appears you can end up working on Bitcoin mining as well if you start in the design community. Pavel has gone on to do a lot of great stuff as well. Yeah, there's quite a few alumni that have interesting roles still.
And also just thanking those of you who've taken the time to join the call as well. I see we have Eddie here is familiar. Joaquin, you're here as well. You've been helping out with the UX research. Chris, I've heard of you, haven't met you yet, but nice to meet you as well. Also Stain, familiar. Ferrero, TJ, I'm not quite familiar. Anthony, Utubi, and Yashra's very familiar in the community. And Michael as well, a current grantee as well, doing some really good work in inheritance as well. So yeah, are there any, questions from you guys? Feel free to drop those questions in the chat. We'd love to, using your questions, sort of build this list of questions that we can, save in our own sort of database, that we can consistently make sure that we're answering any questions that come to your mind. So yeah, feel free to ask them here in the chat, or if anything comes up after the call, feel free to ask them in the Discord channel in the Bitcoin design community.
Yep. And in terms of communication, we were thinking to have a quarterly update, like a bit of a formal summary hosted on Open Collective on that page. But otherwise, not necessarily, make the foundation its own Twitter account or make it a big thing, because it's really in the service of the community. Like it can be mentioned in all of these different places on the community newsletter and all of these places, but not necessarily go super all out and turning this into its own thing, but always making sure that these two really are kind of linked together. So if you might get updates about what the foundation's doing in the next newsletter that will come out in 3 weeks, and you should smash that subscribe button, as they say.
Yeah, again, thank you so much for all the presentation and all you're doing for the community, Christoph, Daniel, and Mo, and of course everyone else. It's quite funny. Last week I just asked Christoph about donations for the community. This is why I'm here. And sorry, my dog. yeah, we have like a small donation from Bitbox for you guys. It's like 3 million sats. It's nothing huge. It's from the white paper copies that we sell in our shop. That's like 100% of the profit goes to Bitcoin development. So this is like the first time that we do one of these donations, and I think you guys are really the best to get the first. So it's not huge, but yeah, I just wanted to say thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Yeah, no, that is very special. You're the first person to step up and donate something. So thank you so much.
In terms of if I have some kind of donors or more, let's say sponsors in mind on a more regular basis, I guess we just reach out privately, separately, or on Discord. Or how does that work? Or how should it work? How do you want it to work?
Yeah, so we don't have an email address quite yet. We have bitcoindesignfoundation.org, which works. It's a landing page. It links out to the Open Collective page. You can contact us directly through the Open Collective page. There's a contact option at the very top. Or if you just have a general question, the foundation channel in Discord. But also just feel free to send people directly to the three of us, and we'll just take it from there. And that is for any type of questions or inquiry. We just really want to hear everything. Any questions about donations, any ideas for things that should get design funding, whether it's something you want to do or you think someone else should tackle, or so. All of these things will be super helpful for us moving forward. And then we'll always try to reflect everything back to to the community, so we can have this larger discussion.
There's a question from John there as well. What are some ways for newcomers to start getting involved and contributing? Very excited to be here. Welcome, John. I'm happy to answer that question very practically. A few years ago, I jumped into the Bitcoin design community. I'm now a grantee, and I literally just started by jumping on the community calls and saying, "Hi, my name's Mo. I'm here to learn. How can I help?" And it's just coming from that place of humility with how can you help, and really just finding your feet by jumping on calls. And you can sign up to the community calls through the community calendar. There's a link which I think we can drop in at some point, but if you sign up to the calendar, you'll get automatic updates of when there's calls. And then within Discord as well, in the top left corner, we have the current events that are coming up. There's actually one, I think there's 2 or 3 events coming up, calls coming up in the next 2 days. But just jump on and get involved, ask questions. Any form of contribution is a contribution. Bye, Steve. Thanks for joining. Any contribution is a contribution, and that is even contributing to a Google document and adding in a few sentences that can shape the direction of a project or something that's being worked on. But yeah, Yashwaj added in a link over there as well to the contribute page. But if there's anything I missed out on, Christoph or Daniel, feel free to jump in.
Takes a little bit of patience and looking around until you find something that hits, that clicks with you. I would just add that.
Yeah, that's very, very on point. I was just about to say something like that. I think when I first got onto then it was still Slack. So when I first kind of started checking out the community, it took me like a couple of months to just because you have your own life or a different job, or you do other stuff. And although I like the general idea, it really takes something that is kind of more concrete that you actually want to work on. And for me, then the spark afterwards was actually the designathon last year, and the Bitcoin Core redesign project. And that's kind of when I started to get more hands-on and then it's from there. I think you'll have to find the topic that's of interest to you.
Thanks for the answers, guys.
Yeah. The exciting thing is that we can really shape this whole thing. Like, we can be super ambitious with the design community. We can be super ambitious with the foundation. With open source, you have all this freedom to design, to organize your work the way you want to, the way it works around your days or nights or time zones and all of this stuff. So, and the foundation is really kind of a power up. So I really hope we can just be kind of ambitious and really start pushing things all together with this new addition. And one of the things that I personally also want to spend a bit more time on in the next few months is exactly that, questions about this career path, how to find your way around, how to think about grants and working in open source and in design and Bitcoin and all of these types of things. I think that'll be a good thing for the foundation to make it a little bit of its mission, like to provide that education. And if you have questions there, please shoot those over. We have about 10 minutes left. Are there any more questions? I'm also curious to hear about what would you like as a follow-up to do? Any calls? Any one-on-ones? Cool. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, guys.
What's up, Eddie?
I just maybe had a question real quick. Is this only for projects that are for the bigger picture of the design community, or is it also for projects? I have nothing in mind, but it's just
Yeah.
like for projects where you as a designer is a big or as a part of it.
Yeah, so something that's not a community project like the Bitcoin Design Guide or so, but something that's a little bit separate from the community otherwise. Yeah. No, I do think that should be part of it. I mean, the thing is that I feel like it always overlaps, right? Like the work with Jam, it's all about privacy. It's a desktop application, uses UIKit or so, or other projects where I feel like there's always some overlap, right? You design something, you learn something, you want to get feedback on it, you can post it in the design community, or something, you come up with some UI pattern and that could feed into the UI kit, or someone else is researching that topic for the guide and you can just have conversations there. So personally, I do think that project specific designer funding should also be a thing.
I mean, also especially when you are able to sync back to the design community, like as you just mentioned, with your findings, or maybe with something you find in a design kit where you want to fix something, etc., where you have all these loops going back, so everyone else can profit.
Yeah. Totally, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Thanks.
Oh, please go ahead.
Hi, guys. I'm kind of new to open source design for sure. I just wanted to say congrats on the foundation. And it actually reminds me, I come from the world of documentary filmmaking. And it kind of reminds me of a foundation there, which is, it started after a documentary editor died. She was Errol Morris's documentary editor. And they started a foundation for her. And it really got pretty powerful and it had like a really big effect on the documentary community. just by focusing on editors, and they would have grantees, and they would also do like mentor relationships. It would be kind of like a point of focus for mentoring people, and they would give out awards at different film festivals and things like that. So I think you guys have there's a lot of possibilities for the community. So it's kind of exciting.
Let's make it happen. That's awesome.
I have one more one thing that just came to mind as well is, what could the three of you or you guys need from people, former grantees or current grantees to help? Because if I try to think of something, I just don't know. So I guess you three went through all these hoops, through all this process, and there's probably something that we can do to help the cause as well, in terms of getting new people, getting sponsors, donors, or testimonials. I don't know what. So that would be interesting to hear.
Is my microphone working again? Okay, you can hear me.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Michael. Well, yeah, I mean, the truth is that the three of us cannot make a community, right? There needs to be a lot more people. We are just trying to kind of organize the back office, if you like. So help that we need is in the community, trying to make things happen, right? When you notice people that are interested, try and support them to get to the kind of next level. If they're sort of turning up, saying hi, try and get them engaged in a call maybe, and then from there we can try and get them interested in a particular area they have a passion about to help out. So again, yeah, just kind of growing the active members of the community generally is something we all need to focus on, right? So on that side, and from there we hope to obviously find great candidates for giving grants to, right? If you're already showing up, if you're already kind of around the community, know what's going on, that that's a great place to both find people and to support them from. So that side. But then again, like on the other side with fundraising, yep, I mean, if you're out at conferences, now you know that there is a foundation that can accept donations and sponsorship. Before, like every individual had to kind of organize their own grants. So that's another great thing where people can help out, right? Like just making people aware that the foundation exists and that design is important, and that we should support more designers in the open source space. So yeah, those two basic things I think will go a really long way.
So one question maybe, so what will be the next steps in terms of roadmap maybe? So will you or will we define several projects, and then we will try to get funds for this, or how have you planned this?
That is a good question. So as I mentioned earlier, in like when we speak with potential larger donors like Spiral or so, we kind of have to say, this is kind of what we want to fund. This is where we see gaps in the ecosystem. So, and we have come up with things like, one example is the Bitcoin design guide. Like, it'd be amazing to have stuff in there about Bolt 12 and silent payments, maybe something about eCash and other kind of maturing technologies where it's kind of coming to a stage where we can start, implementing this in applications, and we can figure out what that is like and how to do that best. There's other stuff like we've had the accessibility event in May, and we identified a ton of accessibility issues, but no one's been really willing to implement those. There's all kinds of stuff that we can come up with. But the part there that we always have to put in this document is that it really depends if someone's willing to step up and do that work, right? You need someone who who for them it's a good time to actually do that, who can kind of prove in themselves a little bit. They have the interest, the motivation, the grit, whatever is needed, whatever amount of time and effort is needed to actually make that happen. So we all have to say, like, this is what we think should happen, but it depends on the reality of how things come along. And that's where also this kind of word of mouth is really, really helpful. I think it is, like you said, it's super helpful if everyone just kind of says, like, I see a hole here. I think here's something that would be super helpful because of this and that, whether it's for you or for not. And then on an individual level, the way I thought about it for myself often is that a grant it's kind of a good combo of there's a real need, something that people want or find useful, and you're excited about it, and it also has an overlap with your skill set. Like you already know something in relation. That's not necessarily, if that broad knowledge is kind of enough, but that's just kind of how I thought about it on an individual basis. That's kind of broad. What would be helpful for you to have another call to brainstorm this stuff, or just kind of have an open document that people can add ideas onto, or just use the foundation channel as kind of an open idea gathering place? What do you think would be helpful to facilitate that?
I mean, we had this GitHub place, for example. Wouldn't that be a space to do this, or do you want to keep this separated from the foundational work?
Yeah, I mean, if all designers are cool with GitHub, we can
Okay, that
do
might be
that
an
as
issue.
well. Foundation is just a little bit easier. The Discord is just easier to just chit chat about things, right? But yeah, either we could create different places for it.
The other thing I wanted to be sure to mention as well, that we want to be completely open to people coming to the foundation with ideas, right? It's not like we should just sit around and sort of poll the community and sort of do it that way. Many grants have happened and should happen by a brilliant person coming forward with a proposal. So I'm really passionate about this. This would be a great addition, or I see a gap here, or and so they come forward with the plan basically, and then it's more about, okay, does that fit in with the budget we have at the moment and the kind of the direction that we see generally? So it's not just a one-way idea factory, right? Like it should come from both sides.
I see we've reached the hour now, but it's also an invitation to all of you as well, is, in line with this question that Christoph created, everything like almost every page in the Bitcoin design guide, I stand to be corrected, started from a Google document. So, reach out to for potential sponsorship. So if you have any ideas with regards to that, we have the foundation channel. Feel free to kick things off, throw a document into the channel, and we'll all contribute. That's just how we do things, in the community.
And we can keep chatting here if you want to. There was one more question. Will the community also sponsor implementation if need be? Sad to see design waste. That's actually a pretty important thing, kind of this life cycle of design, that it's not just pretty pictures, but people actually get to use this thing in the end. So that's where, that's kind of what we have to figure out as a community as a whole. There's, each of us can do our own work, but we can only work on like one project or two projects at a time. In the community, we can help matchmake. We can help projects find and adopt a good design process so they can independently carry on that work. As a foundation, we could discuss, like we're in conversation with Brink and OpenSats and other companies. We can tell them, like, we would love to focus on designers. You guys focus on developers. Maybe here's an idea for you. Is that something you would be willing to do? That's something we can do. And if they feel it's important, then that's something that maybe they're willing to do. That's where we kind of have to figure out the boundaries of the foundation. And it also really depends on the amount. If it's fairly smaller amount, maybe it's fine to just support that implementation. If it's a larger one where someone needs to spend half a year, like implement silent payments or whatever it is, maybe that's something that another entity would be better suited to. But yeah, making sure that that we're not in a academic dreamland, how you would want to phrase this, but that it's real stuff that really helps real people all around the world. That is an important thing for not just the foundation, but I think in general as a community to keep in mind.
Yeah, there are also efforts kind of on the fringes or in between design and development, right? So the Bitcoin UI kit, for example, started as a Figma design library, but there are now a couple of different language flavors for developers out there to use. So that's an example of where it's implemented, but I also like that example because it's sort of a it's not a one product. It's a tool that can be used by many developers. So I think if we're funding in that direction, it's probably more interesting to find things to fund where it will have a magnified impact. Where by funding that particular implementation, that leads to 10, 20, 100 different projects becoming more viable, as opposed to one project that is potentially in competition with others. So I think focusing on the things that have a magnified impact is probably the way we would go there. But again, we can't know until someone comes forward with a idea or a proposal. So nothing to lose.
Yeah, and when the ideas are publicly discussed, that's always been a really good thing. If an idea comes up in Discord, it keeps coming up a few times, a whole bunch of people chime in, something rallies around it, then there's it's obvious, there's a need, there's an interest and there's a want and there's a need probably for it. That makes it then much easier to support, because there's kind of the social hive mind proof already behind things.
I'd like to just say thank you guys for all the efforts y'all put together. I've kind of lurked in the design community for a while, and I always when I jump in and read the content or even jump on a call or whatever it is, I get overwhelmed by all the information and all the things that are going on. So I've appreciated hearing your guys' stories of just staying at it, staying committed, or just keep wait until you find something that kind of connects, but that there will be something that will connect. So just sticking with it, and it's I don't know, it's just helpful to hear that. It was helpful for me to hear that. So I appreciate that, all the efforts you guys are putting in and the consistency and all that kind of stuff. So it's cool to see.
Thank you. All right, have we talked enough about foundation? We go back in the community. No, but this has been really fun to finally kind of share the start, rather. For us three, it's been a journey to get to the start. But it's really nice now to be more in the open and trying to, bear fruit for the foundation's effort back into the community. Because at the end of the day, the three of us also want to spend as much time as we can in the community working on those projects. So it's been a big lift, but we hope it's going to be a good foundation for making that effort more sustainable.
Yeah, and hopefully soon we'll have some news with sponsors and a few other things. We're working pretty hard in the background. We have a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock or so, something, with another 10 bullet points and 5 documents to finish up and get sent out. Fun stuff. If you love writing documents, start a foundation.
Oh man, hang in there. I think there probably couldn't be anyone better than the three of you to do these kinds of things. Thanks a lot.
There probably are, but we haven't met them, so we're doing it.
Cool. Should we wrap it up? Just continue in Discord or elsewhere?
Sounds good to me. Thanks everybody.
One more channel to keep tabs on.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
I'm already behind on the other ones.
Thanks everyone for joining, and looking forward to having conversations with many of you. Let's continue the conversations. Our Discord doors are always open. Feel free to message any of us at any time.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Nice.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye bye.